Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Dean of the Daniels College of Business, Dr. Brent Creit.
Good evening and welcome. I am delighted to welcome each of you all to this final episode of our Voices of Experience initiative for the 2014-15 year. This is a vital component of the management education experience at the Daniels College of Business. It is, among other things, a strong affirmation of how inextricably linked we are to the Denver and the broader regional community. You know, when we think about what it is that we try to do here as it relates to our student experiences, the notion of a co-created experience comes to mind. For our students, we obviously expect them to engage substantively and actively in their own educational experience. But the fullest potential of that experience is only realized when it is, again, co-created with the support of faculty and staff, alumni, our hiring partners, members of the community. So too, these kinds of events, which allow us to engage reciprocally and we believe mutually beneficially with our community members, only occur when they are co-created. The speakers who come here and share their considerable insight and wisdom, members of the community who take out their time to participate in this, our students, and perhaps most importantly, those sponsors who work with us to make these and similar events possible. And so before we begin this evening's program, and before I introduce my colleague, Scott McClagan, who will then formally introduce our panel, we want to take a few minutes to thank some organizations without whose support this event would not be possible. So if I could get our students out here to help me recognize some folks.
Good evening. My name's Eric Brentlinger. I'm from Denver, Colorado. I'm a full-time MBA student concentrating in innovation and technology management. I'm the president of Sport Management Club and the graduate assistant for the Voices of Experience program. It's my pleasure to thank the Voices of Experience sponsors in the speaker series, and I'd like to start by thanking our in-kind sponsors, Denver Metro Chamber of Commerce, Mile High Society of Human Management Resource, Institute of Ethics Enterprise, and our Daniels student group, Net Impact. Would also like to thank our community members who have donated to the Friends of VOE Fund over the last year. Support from individuals like yourselves helps to ensure the viability and the success of VOE program. And in particular, I'd like to thank Les and Jean Petticord, Edward and Stephanie Harvey. And now please help me recognize the organizations who make VOE possible. Without their financial contribution, programs like this would not be possible. First, I would like to thank Mr. Darren Markley from U.S. Bank.
Good evening. My name is Jose Felix. I am from Quito, Ecuador. I'm studying a full-time MBA program with a concentration in finance, and I am the incoming Executive Vice President of the GBSA. I'd like to thank Mr. John Gennell from Grant Thornton.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jeremy Day. I am from Petaluma, California, and I'm a graduate student at the Daniels College of Business doing my international MBA, and then also a master's in global trade, finance, and economic integration. I'm a part of our ambassador program at Daniels, as well as the Inclusive Excellence Graduate Assistant at Daniels, and also a member of the Dean Student Task Force. I would like to thank Mr. David Key from CoBank for being here today.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Qing Han. I'm from China. I'm in the full-time MBA program, concentrating in supply chain management. And I'm the Vice President of International Student Relationship in Graduate Women in Business. I want to thank Kelly Frank from Enterprise Holdings.
Hi everyone, my name is Katie Brassett. I'm from Colorado Springs, Colorado, and I'm currently pursuing an undergraduate degree in sociology and communication studies with a minor in psychology. I'm currently a chairperson of Colleges Against Cancer, and I volunteer with the outreach with the Denver Homeless. I would like to thank Ms. Carolyn Romero from Financial Executives International.
Good evening. My name is Jason Hensel. I'm a second-year full-time MBA student, getting a concentration in business analytics. I'm the outgoing president of the Graduate Business Student Association at Daniels. I'm also a very proud graduate student ambassador. Tonight, I would like to thank Ms. Barbara Kreisman from Daniels Executive and Professional Programs.
Please join me one more time in thanking our sponsors and our students. Thank you. We are, of course, extraordinarily proud of the tradition and the quality of our Voices of Experience activities. We've had, as you know, an exceptional array of speakers and leaders, but we seem to get it especially right for the final event of any academic year, and tonight's event is no exception. It is now my pleasure to introduce my colleague, my very esteemed colleague, Scott McLagan, who will now introduce our panel. Scott.
Good evening. A very, very good turnout considering it's our first nice day in, what, a week? So if I could see, I could probably see a lot of familiar faces. So again, thanks, Brent, and welcome. You know, I'm very excited about this session tonight. I've had the opportunity over the last couple of years to work with Level 3 quite closely. They've become quite a corporate partner of the Daniels College of Business and DU, and we really welcome their involvement with our community. They are a charter sponsor of the Institute for Enterprise Ethics. Lorinda Pang, who you'll meet in a few minutes, is on our executive advisory board. We're very involved in them from an executive education perspective. So a multifaceted involvement with Level 3, so it's quite exciting. Secondly, you'd probably have to be asleep if you didn't realize over the last 10 years that there's this thing going on called the internet. And you know, if you look at what's happening right now, I've got some interesting facts. Level 3 is in the internet business, in providing the infrastructure for the internet globally. It is suggested that by 2017, the traffic on the internet will, in 2017, will be accumulated of all of the internet traffic in history in 1 year. Interestingly also, the current predictions are that by 2020, there'll be 50 billion things attached to the internet. 50 billion, there will only be 7.6 billion people, so do the math. Amazing amount of things going on. Level 3 is a major player in the internet world. It's about an $8 billion company with about 13,000 employees. But here's some interesting facts. They have over 200,000 miles of fiber optic cable that they manage around the world. That's just, if you do the math quickly, about 8 times around the world that they would be involved. They have about 110,000 miles of inner city, 65,000 metro, and over 33,000 miles under the ocean. A lot of times we don't realize that there are big cables that go underneath the oceans to provide the transport of the internet signals around the world. So a major player in that area. They serve 8 of the top 10 banks, 8 of the top 10 internet service providers. So they are the infrastructure for people like Comcast and AT&T and Verizon. Over 200 federal agencies and 4 of the big 6 movie studios. So you can see that they provide a lot of the infrastructure for the internet around the world. Finally, I think it's very interesting that this year is expected to be one of the most active from an M&A perspective since the 2008 downturn. So the M&A activity is very, very active at the moment. Interestingly, if you believe the research, 60 to 70% of all of the acquisitions fail to create shareholder value. Now think about that for a minute. 60 to 70% of all of the acquisition activity fails to meet shareholder value. And the real key is integration, and that is the topic that we are going to be talking about tonight. So I'd like to ask Lorinda and Jeff and John to please join me on stage. So I'm going to give a brief introduction of each of them, and then I'll join them over in the area here. Jeff is the president and CEO of Level 3 and has been since April of 2013. He was promoted out of that from the chief operating officer position. He has been very, very pivotal in positioning Level 3 to take advantage of this great opportunity of the amazing growth of the internet. Jeff has over 30 years of experience in the telecom industry and has been a senior executive for several companies. So we'll have him do a little bit further introduction for himself here in a minute. Lorinda, I don't know if I can read all of this stuff, but Lorinda is the Executive Vice President and Chief Administrative Officer for Level 3. She has global responsibility for corporate strategy, corporate development, human resources, corporate communications, investor relations, and corporate social responsibility. In addition, and very importantly, Lorinda is responsible for leading the integration of TW Telecom, which is what we're here to talk about tonight. And finally, John Blount came from the TW Telecom side and has a very, very critical role in the new organization. He is the president of both North America and Asia Pacific, which is quite a scope. He's responsible for growing the business in those 2 world areas as well as streamlining operations. So we have a great panel here today, and I'm going to join them and get going here. Welcome. So glad to have you here tonight.
Thank you.
So what I'd like to do is start out, if you might just give a little bit more detail on your backgrounds and kind of what was the road that brought you here. Jeff,
Sure,
do you want to start?
Sure, I'll start. As you mentioned, it's over 30 years, so it's a long and torturous road. You know, I'm a technology guy. 1 week after I graduated from high school, I worked on a construction project in North Carolina swamps. And there was an engineer that was there, and as I'm in the mud and the muck of the construction project, I knew whose job I wanted, his or mine. and so, you know, I'm an engineer, I'm a technology guy. When I graduated from college, I looked around and had opportunities in the defense industry and in the telecom industry, and was very lucky that I picked telecom, because I think over the last 30 years, there's no industry in the world that's changed as much of the way we communicate, of the way we enjoy content, of the way we learn, the way we socialize, all of the different things that we do in our personal lives. There's no industry that's changed that more. And Level 3 has been a leader in that change, as you mentioned. you know, that many of the services that we provide have from the beginning been focused on where the internet was going. It's the name of the level 3 is the internet level of the computing model, and so that's where our name even came from. And so we continue to focus on how to change the world, and as I was sitting looking at my career, that's where I wanted to be, somewhere that made a difference, someplace that continually used technology to evolve.
Great choice. Thank you.
It worked out well.
Yeah. Linda.
So I've been with the organization through a variety of acquisitions over the last 21 years. My beginnings wasn't quite as dirty as Jeff's, but I got into telecom through sales, and was looking around at different industries and looking for the opportunity to get into a commercial-oriented or a customer-facing role, and telecom came calling. Probably, again, not as glamorous, but basically I call it slinging long distance back in the mid-90s when divestiture had just taken place and everybody was trying to resell telecom services. So again, been through a number of acquisitions with this particular company over the last 2 decades and have had the opportunity to experience a lot of different roles, a lot of different functions, a lot of different locations, so very blessed.
Good. Thank you. John, how about you?
Well, I'll tell you, as I look back at my career, I can honestly say I have no idea how it got me here.
Isn't that the way we all are, right?
I think about college students today and kids in general today. I think there's so much pressure on them to decide what they're going to be for the rest of their life. And I believe that life has to unfold, and it certainly did for me. And, when I graduated from the University of Nebraska many, many years ago, I had enrolled to be a law student and then immediately started my own business. And I was thinking back on my career, and, I'm 56 years old. I know I look much younger.
I was going to say.
Yes, yeah, thank you very much. But I've only had one resume in my entire life. Because I think if you do a good job, opportunities present themselves. And so I was fortunate enough to land with Time Warner back in 1995, almost 20 years ago, and where I ran a city for them, ran a region for them, and then ended up running the country for them as COO and president. And feel very fortunate to be joining a great organization in Level 3.
Thank you very much. That's great. Well, so, back in October of last year, we finalized a deal for a great Colorado company, Level 3, to acquire TW Telecom. It built probably the largest technology company in Colorado. So Jeff, if you wouldn't mind starting and just talk a little bit about how you see the telecom industry in general, and what was it that attracted you to TW Telecom? What was the strategic rationale behind the acquisition?
Sure. Starting with the second part first. There are a lot of reasons that Level 3 may acquire companies. You can look to expand your market and the geography and the footprint that they have. You can look at their customer base. You can look at synergies. You can look at a technology that they have that you don't have. You can look at the quality of the people. When we looked at TW Telecom, it was a combination of all of those things. It is an excellent company, was a well-run company, with a strong focus on the customer experience. We thought that culture fit well with the Level 3 culture of focusing on our customers. The technology that TW had used in their systems environment was conducive to where we believed the world was going in telecommunications. And so we looked across all of those various dimensions and thought it was an excellent fit for us. Mm-hmm. It's predominantly US-based. But a lot of the technology and capabilities that we're deploying now through the integration process, we will deploy globally. We'll deploy in our EMEA operations and our Latin America operations as well. And where the telecom industry is going, you mentioned 50 billion devices connected to the internet. Your light bulbs can be internet enabled today if you want. You can go buy a light bulb that you can have an IP address on. That's where technology is going. It's going to continue to proliferate for every application that's out there. We never would have predicted the types of applications we carry on our cell phones today 10 years ago. We won't be able to predict the same things that'll happen 10 years from now. But we know the continued distribution of technology will get smaller and smaller and smaller, more ubiquitous, more available to every type of device that's out there.
Hey, and I saw a statistic the other day that said something like 95% of the population of the world has a cell phone. It's higher than the literacy rate. It's higher than the number of people with a bank account. So you begin to think about the transformational aspect of having all of those devices connected. It's quite amazing. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. Linda, you were asked from the level 3 side to lead the integration project. Would you mind giving everybody a sense of how that's going and how you approached it? And I'm sure you're midway through it. It's about 6 months in at this point. But can you talk a little bit about the approach you took and how things are going?
Sure. So a couple of things. I think, Level 3 is a company of acquisition. We've done a number of them over the years, over the history of the company. And the opportunity for this particular one was we had so much learning, right? So much to leverage from past integrations, things that we did really well that we wanted to replicate, and things that we learned that probably weren't as good or as effective as prior ones. So I think leveraging a lot of the learnings from the past was incredibly important to us. But as I think about kind of the top 3 things, if you will, around integration, what did we do well and where did we focus? Number 1 was picking the right team. I think it's very easy for organizations to not want to put their A players on an integration team because it removes them from the day-to-day business, it removes them from being able to execute and continue to drive the business. But A players are incredibly important because they know the business so well, they stakeholder manage really well, and they understand implications for decisions that you make throughout the time of the integration. So we picked the right team there. The second thing I would say is we moved with speed, a great pace, and John and I were in this one together from the very beginning. We moved with pace and we were very decisive. And I think that's important for the organization because providing clarity to the team to understand the decisions that you're making, the rationale for the decisions that you're making is incredibly vital. And Jeff made a very quick decision very early on, which was to choose his leadership team. And I think that provided the necessary clarity to the business. The third thing I would say is around culture. Don't forget the people. Because so much of this depends on how well the organization accepts that change. They're all going to move through it at different paces. They all go through their change curve for whatever reason at different times and at different rates, and we need to understand that and make sure that, again, decisions are clear, they're fast, they're communicated really well, and that people have the opportunity to work through those emotions sometimes, which can be pretty heightened in any integration, and kind of get through that process.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things that has come up a lot recently that I find it interesting. I'm glad to hear about the pace because one of the things that stresses out people the most is uncertainty. It's just that here's the big announcement and everybody every day is, okay, so what's going to happen and when the thing's going to happen. So that pace is so critically important. So thank you. John, you were on the other side of this transaction. You were with TW Telecom when this happened. Obviously, you have a very key role in the new organization, but what was it like inside of TW Telecom right after the announcement, after things began to be obvious that this was going to happen?
Well, I guess the best way to get a company acquired is to run it like you're not trying to sell it, and so we were a little bit shocked, at the time. We were shocked and we were relieved. So as you think about, we're a public company, most of the management team of TW Telecom had been together for many years. The executive management team had been together, for more than 15 years. So we grew up together with TW Telecom. And so, I think we all felt very fortunate. Our business plan, we built dense local markets. But as we move up market, it's much harder to connect our customers. And for years, we've looked at Level 3 and their capabilities and felt like the two companies belonged together. Every year we'd have a strategic session with our board. We talk about what's the future of our business. And I can tell you for the last 10 years, a piece of that we always included combination with Level 3. So We were shocked, we were saddened a little bit because we love TW Telecom, but we're also very thankful that it was level 3 that we're going to be getting to partner with.
That's great.
So it was with mixed emotions, but I think it's really been great for our business, and it's taken TW Telecom to a whole new level.
That's great. That's great. Any insights you can provide to leaders who are in an acquired company about the way you should show up and the way you should handle yourself and in that kind of a situation?
Well, I'll tell you, the first thing that kind of comes to mind is that you've got to be able to communicate the vision of the combined. And, this made so much industrial sense for our business that it was an easy story to tell employees as to, the logic behind that. And I would say that, the second thing that, is you really have to focus on your key talent. So if you run a successful business, they're attractive to the rest of the industry.
Sure.
And what we saw was immediately our talent was swarmed upon by the telecommunications industry trying to take them away. And it was extremely important as a leader of the new combined to get in front with those employees and make sure that they understood that they had a place in the new combined, and that we retained the talent that that we'd grown over so many years.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you. So mergers bring a lot of tough decisions, as we all know, when you have a synergy case and you're doing all of that. Can each of you comment a little bit on your specific leadership approach during those tough decision times and during the integration process? Just sort of what profile as leaders did you take, and talk a little bit about any recommendations you might have about how you handle yourself and during the difficult times
Sure.
of those.
John and Lorinda have both already touched on this, but make decisions quickly. Be decisive about what you're going to do. Make sure that you create a vision of what the company is going to be, what you want the organization to be, and then help people see themselves in that vision. Because we all want to contribute to the organizations we're in. We want to be part of an organization that makes a difference, but then we want to contribute to that organization. And so we worked very hard at level 3 to make sure that all of our employees, whether they were brand new employees or employees that had been with the company for 21 years, we wanted to make sure that everybody understood what our vision was, understood where we were going as a combined business and a combined company, and how they could see themselves in that. And then be honest with people and open with them and upfront and communicate early and often about what you're going to do. One of the things that the TW Telecom management team, John and others from TW did that was a little bit unusual is they welcomed me to come down and start talking to TW Telecom employees within a week or so of the announcement. Within 3 weeks of the announcement, I think I had talked either in person through sessions like this or over conference calls with every TW Telecom employee. Certainly every TW Telecom employee had the opportunity to talk with me, and that was very welcoming.
Yeah,
and that was sending a message to the organization about what we were going to create as a company. And then Lorinda said also, don't lose sight of the culture. It's about the people, and it really is about the people. And so if you put in your thinking humans' needs first, and that's what's driving your decisions, it drives your communication. People need to understand what their role is. They need to understand where they're going, and they need to see how they fit into that. And so we have focused through this integration effort really early and often on being very visible with people, thinking about their needs and communicating with them.
Yeah. I think that idea of being available and being around is very important, because it's easy to just lock yourself in your office and because of that. And we all know that transparency has a very, very direct correlation with trust. So to the degree you're honest and fast, I think that all works very, very well.
And we're certainly not perfect,
Yes.
right? There's a lot more we could have done and should have done in hindsight and over-communicated. But trust is foundational, and it's something that I know we pride ourselves on. And just a quick anecdote, as Jeff was going on the road and doing all of these employee meetings, John called me one day, and I wasn't there. I wasn't invited. John, they only invited Jeff. John called me and said, that's all right, forgive me. John called me and said, yeah, the town hall went really well, and some employees walked up to John afterwards and said, I really wanted to not like him, meaning Jeff, but we kind of like the guy.
Yeah.
So that, it just breaks down those barriers instantaneously, and you humanize, the people who are acquiring you, and it doesn't feel so big, bad, and unknown.
Absolutely, absolutely. How about you?
Well,
any thoughts on the decisions and just kind of tips?
Well, Jeff came out very quickly and said that, we were going to be one company. We were going to fully integrate together. We're going to have one set of products, one set of systems, one set of data. We were going to become one company. And what we were going to do is we were going to build the best possible company out of the two that we had to work with. And so I think that the messaging from the very beginning was that, we're going to become one, and that we're not just going to be acquired and discarded after a period of time. We were going to be an integral part of the future of Level 3. And I think that message really resonated with the TW Telecom employees, and Jeff being so visible with all of our employees was really helpful for them to see that, this is a real company. We did compete every once in a while, and when you compete, you have a tendency to maybe not think the best of your competition, and so it was. I think it was really great for all of our employees, and myself included, to just see how good the Level 3 team was.
Yeah, that's great. So we've already talked about culture a little bit, but I'd like to dive just a little bit deeper into the culture issue. Research shows that the most challenging thing that you face, and we talked about 60 to 70% of acquisitions don't create shareholder value. And out of the reasons for that, integration is one, paying too much is one. But one of the big ones is culture, is how do you take two dissimilar cultures, bring them together into one company? The culture is the personality of the organization, and obviously they would have very, very different personalities. Maybe I'll start with you, Lorinda, since you were leading the integration team. Can you talk a little bit about how you went about defining the to-be culture, the culture that you desired for the combined company, and what successes and challenges are you seeing as you move forward in the culture area?
Sure. So I would say first, to kind of set some context, is Level 3 has been going through a cultural evolution for probably the past 3 years, since we've grown substantially and we've acquired some big businesses. And our culture is grounded in our core values, and that's something that the leadership team decided a long time ago. And when the most recent acquisition happened, and we looked at the core values for both of the organizations, they actually weren't too far apart, which was great, because you started to get the sense that, again, the cultures weren't too far apart. Clearly, there are differences. The way that we operated, very different. There's a lot of strategic differences. I mean, things that were big, kind of challenges for us to overcome. But culturally, again, both organizations put a lot of worth and value in trust. As you look through our core values, that word is kind of intertwined in each one of those core values. But what we did do is, as we were planning through the integration planning phase before the acquisition actually closed, we did do an evaluation of the two environments and asked employees, what's important to you? What is it that you love about this place? What do you wish we did more of, et cetera? So we certainly got a pulse of the organization. But we actually adopted a few of the TW Telecom core values. So we kind of readjusted a little bit. We didn't move really off of the ethos, but we certainly adopted some of the language. And hopefully that was meaningful to the combined organization. But we are on a cultural evolution, like I said, for the last 3 years. I think the combined organization is pretty excited about the work that we're doing. Again, grounded in values, we are very focused in on inclusion, diversity and inclusion, and we've got a number of different programs and groups that are helping for us to realize the vision that we have around inclusion. So collectively, I hope we get a good check mark for that one from the employee base. Still work to do, clearly. I think we're never satisfied, and we'll continue to improve. But again, not too far off.
Yeah, great. You came from the TW Telecom side. How would you characterize the culture inside of TW Telecom, and then how would you say that side is adjusting to the to-be culture that you're aiming for the integrated Level 3?
Well, you know, as I mentioned before, you know, our company grew organically. And so, you know, we have only had one acquisition. And so there's not a lot of new team members that were brought in. Most people were at TW Telecom were grown there. And the culture was a lot like a family. You know, I knew many of our salespeople have been with the company, you know, for 15 years or greater. Knew them, knew their family, got to see them grow up. And so we were a much smaller company together. Both Level 3 and TW Telecom really grew up, though, in the same city, you know, from the headquarters in the same city. So we knew Level 3 really well, knew a lot of people at Level 3, knew the culture at Level 3. And I think conversely, they knew a lot of people, you know, at TW. And so, you know, it was, you know, for us, it was a culture of getting big very quickly, you know, was the biggest change. But there were so many people that we knew on the other side that we could call and talk about what, you know, what it was like and vice versa. That I think that the two cultures came together quickly, and you know, because of the people within the organization. So it was you know, we were all very thankful that it was this combination that ended up.
And people are adjusting well?
They are adjusting well. You know, I use the analogy all the time of a water skier. So you do all this planning of integration, and we were planning for 6 months, and then you know, as soon as you know, so you plan like with the water skis, you know, get the boat ready and the ropes ready, and then you know, when day one comes, you see it go, and so you know, everybody's got to hang on with the vision that they're going to pop out here pretty soon. And,
that's a great metaphor.
And you know, it's true. People are definitely popping out. They're seeing themselves in the new Level 3, and they're excited about where the combined company is going. So
great. Yeah. Jeff, any overall comments on culture, on how it's going, on your vision of the kind of the culture of a great company, you know, where you're heading with culture? And Lorinda talked about the fact that this is work in progress, but you know, where are you trying to go with the overall culture of the organization?
Sure. Culture is a relatively small word with a really big meaning. and it's misleading to believe that there's even just one culture in our company. There are different cultures in different organizations, different cultures when talking about our customers, when looking internally at employees and shareholders. And so there are different cultures that we have as a company. And what we are focused on is having one of openness, one of integrity. Lorinda talked about our core values, and the core values of TW Telecom were very similar to the core values of Level 3. The combined company has a mix of both. But they're rooted in integrity, which means doing what we say we're going to do, holding ourselves accountable for what we commit to our customers, to our employees. It means telling the truth even when the truth is unpleasant, and telling the truth early. It means shining a light. If you have, we don't do everything perfectly. I'd like for us to, but we don't yet. But if you have a problem, shining a bright light on it, not trying to cover it up, but shining a bright light. All of those things, being open to self-criticism, being open to improvement, all of those are core to who we want to become and who we are. Being focused on the human needs side of things. Our customers need us to deliver. If we think about the network manager in an enterprise that is expecting Level 3 to secure its network from a very threatening internet, they need for us to do that. And so how do we develop our products and services? How do we focus our teams to where they're focused on that network manager's needs? As Lorinda looks at our employees, and how do we develop our processes to help them do their jobs more effectively? They want to be successful. They want to make a difference. How do we really focus on their individual needs so that as we plan our integration and as we plan how we want to operate the company, that we're really looking at that level of detail. It's not about staying up in the clouds and talking about culture. It's about how we interact with each other and how we interact with our employees. And Lorinda said picking people, the right people for the integration team was critical in any integration. I completely agree. Lorinda was picked to lead it from the Level 3 side. John was picked to lead it from the TW Telecom side. It starts at the top of the organization because then those people set the culture for the integration team. And the integration team is a whole bunch of people that went out and seeded the organization with the culture that we were wanting to do. Not only the actual work that we wanted to do, but the culture itself, and became a seeding mechanism for our entire company.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we know, I'd like to expand this to the broader subject of leadership. We know that that culture is shaped by leaders. We know that, as you very well said, the behaviors of leaders shape the culture. We also know that there's a very strong relationship. In fact, the more you're changing, the more need for good leadership. Maybe I'll start with this way and go left to right. Talk a little bit about your perspective on leadership and the importance of building a strong leadership bench, the importance of leadership in an organization, particularly in times of dramatic change. Do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Well, Scott, I've made a career by surrounding myself with people that are better than me. And so I think that the first characteristic of any good leader is to pull together a diverse and brilliant team. Mm-hmm. And so, as I think of all the success that I've had in my career, it's really always been somebody else or part of a broader team that has made that happen. Mm-hmm. So as we were, building the combined, one of the first things that I did was I went out and I tried to find the most talented team that I could in the combined. I think I've got an amazing team mm-hmm. To drive North America and APAC. And so, my views on leadership are, you've got two different kinds of leaders. You've got some leaders that like to be, I call them funnel leaders, where they like to be out front and all of their teams behind them. And then you have what I think is the better leader, who puts their team out front and then follows them along. Mm-hmm. So we've got incredible talent in this company, and I think it's harnessing that talent with a common vision and a common direction that's going to make us ultimately successful. And it's really amazing to me as I get to know the level 3 side of the house, just how much talent that there is in the combined, because I know them on the other side of the house.
Yeah.
So if we can just harness that talent, we've got so many leaders in our business. If we can empower them and let them go, it's really going to go fast.
That's great. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Linda, this is one of the big areas that you focus on. So.
And I may not have a great answer. So I think during these times when it's just, there's constant change going on, there's constant challenges, there's constant new people to interact with and figure out new processes, decisions that we're making. The leaders that I think are the most successful in those environments are the ones that are present, physically, emotionally, intellectually present, and the ones that make time for their people, because there is a tremendous amount of uncertainty throughout all of this. And so I think that what we found is the ones who are willing to be there, willing to be not necessarily up front and putting everybody behind them, as John was describing, but willing to be present and willing to answer questions that they may not necessarily have the answer for, right? And be okay with saying, I don't know, but I will figure it out and come back to you, and just be present and give them that solid foundation is incredibly important. Mm-hmm. And I agree with John in terms of leaders that are willing to allow their teams to go out front and be successful and to feel that win is really important. Success breeds success, right? And we've seen that at level 3, and I hope that continues.
So you see people really stepping up in the integration process, and
for the most part. I mean, again, we don't do everything perfectly, so you certainly have people who don't necessarily become as present as you like, but those are learning moments. Those are opportunities to get them to do that for you, and their teams appreciate it. Teams crave it. They need it. And so I would say, generally speaking, we're really pleased with the leadership that we've seen throughout this time.
Great. How about you, Jeff?
The first comment is leadership occurs all over the organization. Right. It's not only the first person, it's the second person. There's this internet video out there about a guy dancing in the field, and I don't know if you've seen it, but it looks ridiculous. And there's somebody narrating, and he's doing this wild dance, and the person narrating is talking about this guy, and then somebody goes and starts dancing with him, and then they call that person the first follower, right. And that's a leader. And then there are more people, and before long, everybody's in the movement, and they're all dancing this ridiculous dance. Hopefully it's not a ridiculous dance, but that's what our leadership is about.
I think that was filmed in Boulder.
Okay.
It looked like it, for sure. Yeah.
And Lorinda and I are very comfortable dancing with it. It's all good.
If we have John and Lorinda here, but we have 7 other people on our team as well. From a leadership perspective, the first thing that we had to do is pick those 9 people and make sure that we have the right 9 people. The second is getting all of us aligned to where we say the same things, we think the same things, and that doesn't mean, that one person decides all the answers and everybody else lines around them. No, it means we work together to understand what's best for the combined business. How do we build what we really want to build and where we want to go, and then how do we get other people to be the first followers to that?
Right.
Because then they're the leaders for somebody else. And before long, you have this entire movement of people moving behind the vision that you have and the team that you have. And leadership is a lot about getting the heck out of the way, letting people do it themselves and be the leaders for their organizations and help us understand where we want to go.
Mm-hmm. So I hear, first of all, it's called the Lone Nut video. If you want to Google
good.
it, it's called, it's a feature in most of my leadership classes. It's called the Lone Nut video. It's quite good. So the themes that I'm really hearing, first of all, was to have a really good plan, get started early. I heard about moving with pace and making decisions quickly so that there was not a lot of uncertainty in the organization. I heard the importance of an aligned executive team, an executive team that you bring together fast, work through the decisions, make sure that there's a common face to the organization. And then around the culture, to have a really good understanding of where you want, what you wanted the behaviors in the organization to be. Any comments on that? Does that sort of, when you think about the process that you've been through, any additional things that you'd put in there?
Well, the one that I would highlight is be honest. And that means tell people the way things are. When you know them. When you don't know them, tell them, I don't know the answer to this. But when you know them, tell them the answer. Mm-hmm. People have an amazing ability to face the truth.
Right.
If they're told the truth.
Yeah.
If you share that with them. And that makes them feel a part. And it helps them to understand how they can help shape where the organization's going. So I'd add that.
One of the things that we know is that if in the absence of information, people make stuff up, right? So, and they usually make it up. They usually make it up to a worse degree than it really is. So it's best to just be honest and straightforward.
Right.
Great.
Yeah. I would just say again, it's amazing how many people stepped up in this process, and we were just reflecting. We've been at this now for 6 months actively, and looking at all the milestones and what we've achieved. And it's not just the efforts of the integration team. This is a company-wide, it's an army of people who have delivered in some respects against these milestones. So I think recognizing the hard work and just the commitment that the organization has had as a whole. Mm-hmm. Once again, they understand the vision, they can get behind it and just rally. People can do amazing things, mm-hmm. and we've seen that. We still have a ton of work to do, don't get me wrong, and we're not claiming victory by any stretch of the imagination, but I think we've got the right group of employees in place to make it happen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
John, comments?
Yeah, I think you hit on it. You've got to over-communicate to the people. We are a company full of individuals, and they all want to know, what about me? Mm-hmm. And you can tell them once, but if you don't tell them again in the next 2 weeks, they'll start to create things on their own, mm-hmm. as you say. And so communication is really important. I think we did a great job of communicating through the integration, and I think we've got to continue that right now. So we're kind of coming out of it. We're not coming out of integration. It'll be integration takes a long time, mm-hmm. But it does move into business as usual at times, and I think we've got to continue that communication to keep people engaged.
Yeah. So Jeff, this was not on the script, but I thought just looking forward, you had a great quarter, and you're heading to the future. What are your aspirations for Level 3 going forward? How do you position that, and how would you like to think about the combined company going forward?
I think about our company in terms of our employees and our customers. I want Level 3 to be the best telecommunications company in the world. And I think that you mentioned our fiber networks and our infrastructure and all of those different things. I think we have the infrastructure to do that. I think we have the people to do that. I think that we have the product set that matches where the world is going, from security and networking and all of those different things for enterprise customers around the world. And I want us to be a place where when our customers choose us, they're excited to choose us, that they're excited about what they've bought from us and partnering with us, that they have an emotional connection. I was an early iPhone adopter, and I remember that, after I'm looking at it and it's got great functionality and I can do my calendar and all these different things, wonderful functionality, but at the end of the first 30 minutes I go, this is really cool, and that's an emotional connection.
Right.
Not a functional connection, an emotional connection. And I want our customers to have an emotional connection to Level 3 and the products and services we provide. I know our employees do. Our employees are getting excited and more excited about the company, about where we're going, about the opportunities that we have in front of us. But I also want our employees to be excited to choose Level 3. Every morning, our employees have an opportunity to go somewhere else. They're very technical, they're very talented in a world that is needing technically talented people. And our employees have an opportunity to go somewhere else. I want them to be excited every morning when they choose to get up and go to work at Level 3. And if we can do both of those, then I know we will satisfy our shareholders. If you can satisfy your customers, make them excited, if you can get your employees excited about delivering for those customers, the shareholders win automatically.
Absolutely. Are there any final sort of comments to wrap things up? Or?
I would just actually build on what Jeff is talking about, because as there's lots of awards out there for organizations to try and win about great places to work, et cetera. And we're not trying to win awards per se. It'd be great to get them if they want to give them to us, but we're not actively going out and pursuing that. At the end of the day, as I talk to my team, we want our employees to say it. We want them to understand that they're a part of an organization that has the potential to change the world. So when you think about all the stats that you led off with today, it's just astounding what's going on around us and in front of us, and our employees have the opportunity to be a part of that. And as they understand that and have that emotional connection, they'll say this is the greatest place. And so that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. Final comments?
I think, I've been spending a lot of time out with our customers and out in the field here just this last week. And it's clear to me that our customers are very excited about the combination. They're excited about the company. They're excited about where we're going. It's always more fun when you leave corporate headquarters and you actually get out there and see, sit across the table from our customers. And the reaction's been really good from that side, from the combination. And so, I think about, we've just had our results here, right in the middle of all of the integration and everything that we're working on as a company to be moving forward in a steady pace as we are is, I think, really encouraging for the future of Level 3.
Yeah. Love the focus on customers and employees, because then the results will come. That's a great way to go. Well, we're I think ready to take some questions from the audience if we want to do that.
Hi, my name is David. I was with the Executive MBA course 54. I work at Level 3. I'm with the Network Advancement Team. Go NPNI. So one of the question I have for you is, can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you faced and how you overcame them? And if you haven't yet, how you guys are formulating that plan to move forward?
You want to start?
Okay.
We have plenty of challenges.
We have lots of challenges.
And let me add one thing first. We are not done. We are a long way from integrated, and it's a long road. So while we think we've done a lot of things right, we had an all-employee call the other day, and I hate saying we had a solid quarter, but we got to do better. So I use the word however. And that's where we are.
Yeah.
And so we have plenty of challenges. We have lots of things that are opportunities for us to continue to improve.
So absolutely, lots of challenges, lots of risks that we're constantly looking at and trying to figure out ways to mitigate. But the challenge that come to the team are fast and furious, and depends on what the particular milestone is at any given point in time in this process. But again, you go back to the number one thing that I said, which is pick the right team. And the team, the Integration Management Office in particular, is staffed with some really capable, smart people who are not afraid to raise the challenges and to call people on them. And I think once they're called on them, they can figure out how to problem solve and solution. This team has not been afraid to jump in a room for days on end and just think about problems in a very different way and try to wrestle them down. And that's what it takes. It takes brute force, because this is not easy. And it's not simple. It's fairly complex. And so it requires a tremendous amount of communication and brute force.
You know, one of the first decisions we made as a company is that we were going to maintain a South Campus and then our campus in Broomfield. And although we're all in the same market, I-25 has created a challenge.
Imagine that.
And so, you know, fortunately, you know, I've overcome that challenge weekly by using E470, but we're very happy that the 36 is now being renovated here to make it much easier. But you know, the real challenge that creates is how do we act as one organization, even though we have two physical locations. And so right now we're doing a lot of programs to try and make sure that we cross-pollinate and get, you know, people from the South Campus, which is where our Network Operations Center is, and where our headquarters and a lot of our engineering talent is down south. And how do we make sure that gets fully integrated in the Broomfield campus, but also the other way around, make sure that we get people you know, to come down south so that we really truly become one company in the same market. You know, it seems like we're very close. You know, that could be a long drive. You know, in between those two. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, Greg Moore from EMBA Cohort 60, and I'm working in data analytics, and I wonder, as you look at how you measure your performance going through this integration process, how you measure things like the employee engagement and other KPIs that you have for how you measure the success of the integration process.
Sure. You want me to take it? So a ton of KPIs, you can imagine, in the technology space. You've got a lot of engineers and mathematicians running around campuses. And we're a very results-oriented, performance-driven organization, so we like to measure things. And we have a set of KPIs that we look at on a weekly, monthly, and quarterly basis across operational metrics, financial metrics, performance metrics. Employee engagement is certainly one of those. That we look actually on a kind of a biannual basis, or I'm sorry, semi-annual basis. That would be too infrequent. But you know, we're asking the questions. We're asking employees, as I stated during the integration planning process, we ask them what it is that they enjoyed about their environment, what kind of environment that they wanted, and how they would kind of rank themselves or rate the environment. But from a specific employee engagement perspective, we go out to our employees, again, on a semi-annual basis and ask them, how are we doing? You know, Net Promoter Score, would you recommend a friend or a colleague in the industry to work at level 3? Are you seriously thinking about leaving level 3 within the next 6 to 12 months is kind of the orientation of the question. And so the very cool thing is, I said earlier, we've been going through a cultural evolution over the last 3 years, and I can see progress over those 3 years that is quite substantial, and that's by location, by region, by function. We've seen significant improvements across all of those scores. So as it relates to the integration, we actually only kick off our first engagement survey, technical engagement survey, next month, and then we'll look at it every 6 months from then on.
Any comments, Jeff?
Well, there are lots of metrics. The first employee engagement metric that matters is, did I choose to come to work today? You know, and so we look at attrition. You know, that's the most fundamental type of engagement. And you know, we look at, there's some very scientific ways of doing it. There are also anecdotal ways of doing it. We talk to employees every day, all day, and when employees are sitting back like this in an audience, and you know, that's one level of engagement. When they're sitting forward yelling, "Go NPNI," you know, that's another level of engagement. And so there's anecdotal engagement stuff that we use as well. And you know, people will tell you what's on their mind if you just listen, give them an opportunity.
There's also a couple of, real key metrics that you can look at outside of headquarters. One is the sales force. Sales force, salespeople in general are, they're mercenaries. They're going to go wherever they think they can be successful long term, and they have to see that they're going to be successful for them to want to stick around. And we've been very encouraged by, their reaction to the combination. I think, the second one that really sticks out for me is our customers. And as I mentioned before, are they sticking around? And as you look at the churn metrics and the customer metrics themselves, pretty encouraged by their reaction to the combination as well. So those are a couple of key ones for me.
Great.
Hi. The perception from the outside, and feel free to correct it, is that Level 3 started mostly as a backbone internet provider and wholesaler. That over the last 5 years you've done a lot of acquisitions to diversify that revenue stream away from wholesale, and that this acquisition is as much related to finding that last mile traffic and hiring a good business sales force as anything else. The question beyond that is, so if anything I've said incorrectly, just correct it, is how does wireless and the fact that fewer and fewer people are keeping those landlines even at a commercial level affect that whole stream of last mile and how to attack it?
Sure. I think that part of the characterization of Level 3 is correct. I mean, we started as a backbone internet company selling to many other internet service providers and other companies. So we have a history of being a wholesale provider. Today, at one point, it was probably 30% of our revenue came from enterprise customers and 70% came from wholesale. Today, it's completely flipped. About more than 70% of our revenue comes from enterprise customers, 30% comes from wholesale. Wholesale is a very important part of our business, gives us scale, gives us scopes. It helps us to solve end consumer problems by partnering with other people that can address those. And so we'll continue to have the wholesale business. But we are focused on growing the enterprise and solving enterprise customers' challenges. You can't talk about communications without talking about mobility and wireless. And I take wireless to mean exactly what the word says, just a little less wire.
Wireless.
Yeah, wireless, just a little less wire. Communications wants to go to glass as quickly as it possibly can. Even wireless no longer means cellular. If you have an Android phone or an iPhone or an iPad, you want to go to Wi-Fi. You don't want to go to cellular. You want to get to Wi-Fi, and that comes out of your house or out of your business on glass. And so, as things go more and more mobile, that's just opportunity for Level 3. I don't expect us to go out and sell handsets or sell cellular service, but as things become more and more mobile, as the proliferation of internet devices, those are things that drive the bandwidth, drive the services that Level 3 provides, and I expect it will continue for all enterprises. Enterprises will just become more and more dependent on their networking needs.
Any other comments? Very good.
One here on the back level. Thanks. I'm Pete Maysmith. I lead a merged nonprofit organization. And part of leadership, of course, is risk-taking. And Jeff, or I guess all three of you, I'd just be interested in how you think about risk-taking, whether it's an acquisition or other parts of your business that you're running, and would love your thoughts on that.
I'll lead off. Risk-taking is part of who you have to be if you want to be successful in business. Now, it's easy for us to say, TW Telecom, you have to be willing to take big risks and buy companies. But there are lots of little risks that we need to take every day. We need to be able to sit in a meeting and speak our mind and take the risk that our managers, if we disagree with them, are going to at least listen to what we do. And so an organization to be successful today, to challenge who it is, to challenge itself going forward, has to be tolerant of big risks and little risks, the little risks that each one of our employees do every day. And that's one of the things that we really focus on is, can we create an environment, and we've mentioned trust a couple of times. Can we create an environment where our employees trust us, where they can take risks and they can push either what we do today or what we want to do tomorrow, and know that the risk-taking is appropriate. Now, we're not going to fail all the time, right? We're not going to take a whole bunch of risks where you just repeatedly fail, but risk-taking has to be core to who you are, big risks and little risks.
We want our employees to push us, to push our boundaries. At a time of an integration when they're trying to figure out where they are, it's a challenge to get them to step outside of their box and stick their neck out a little bit and push forward. But I think it's one of the biggest challenges that faces business today is getting employees to feel comfortable with the risk, and it does all boil down to trust.
Yeah, that ability to manage up and because I think when people are stressed by the change, the easiest thing is to put your head down and try to not do that. But that's in fact what you need the most is during the risk taking.
One of the things we talked about earlier is moving with pace and with speed, and with that comes imperfection, right? We constantly communicate the fact that we're going to move, but we know may not get it 100% right. You'd always like to, but the reality is there's inherent risk at moving at the speed that we've been trying to move at. And we need to be okay with that. We need to be okay with taking those calculated risks, knowing about 80 to plus % of the answer and moving. And then having, the kind of the intestinal fortitude to say, okay, was that right? If not, how do I adjust? How do I, you're constantly course correcting along the way. And I think that's a part of taking risks.
Hi, Jeff Wagner. Going back to some of the M&A integration techniques, I've done a little bit of a mergers and acquisition integration, and one of the questions that I have that I found consistently to be true is that even when you apply a lot of alignment techniques, you still often end up with what I would call sleepers in the mid-level to executive range. And I'm wondering, there's a humanistic approach to how you deal with them, but it's often very challenging to identify them, and I'm wondering what techniques you've identified for that.
Did you say there are sleepers?
Is that mid-level management.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's daily, right? I mean, I think, we certainly come across that pretty frequently, and it comes down to first of all, having conviction in your vision and the rationale for why you did a particular acquisition or merger, and communicating the heck out of it. We say often that you can't tell somebody something once and expect it to sink in. You've got to tell them 10, 13 times before they will accept. There is the reality, though, that some people will not, and some people will never get on the bus, so to speak, and those are the people that need to make personal decisions for themselves. And you give them time to try and get there, but at some point, it unfortunately means that they might have to go a different direction.
One of the decisions that Jeff made very quickly was to announce his direct report team, and he did that almost immediately upon the announcement of the deal. And right after that, the next layer, so if it was a TW person chosen, like myself, everybody on both sides was sitting there going, what about me? Mm-hmm. And so what we saw was this cascade of need all the way down the organization. Then you announce the next layer, and the layer below that is all sitting there kind of wondering, when do I find out about me? Yeah. And so you have to continually connect the managers of the business and the individual contributors all the way down through the business constantly. Yeah. Or you get those sleepers.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I probably shouldn't say this, but it never stops me, unfortunately. You have sleepers, and I talked about human need. That person's human need is to work somewhere else, and that's our job to help them, and I mean that sincerely. I mean that sincerely, I do, because they're not happy as a part of our organization, and we all want to be happy where we work, and so helping sleepers identify themselves and helping them out of our organization is part of our challenge. Yeah, I know I shouldn't have said that.
Don't quote him.
Well, but it may not be right for everyone.
Well, absolutely.
The new combined, bigger. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
I'm Jason Zetterval with the MBA Cohort 64, and I'm curious, was there ever a time as part of either this acquisition or another acquisition that Level 3 has made, when trying to set the goal and trying to set the vision, there were just very differing ideas about what the goals for either the acquired company or for the combined company should be, and what types of techniques, or was it a matter of KPIs and metrics, or that you used to work through that and either get to an agreement or agree to set a different goal?
First answer is absolutely. I mean, there were a number of times in this acquisition and other acquisitions where we had long, strong debate about where we wanted to go. We tried to be data-driven. We tried to be fact-based. We tried to not make decisions emotionally. Tried to not make decisions based on our legacy, where we came from, what we did in our prior company. We try and take the best of the best, and John used that phrase earlier, but it permeates through all of our integration planning and our acquisition planning, is how do we take the best without looking at necessarily where it came from. Ultimately, you just have to make a decision, and then everybody has to get aligned behind it. Back to sleepers. You know, everybody's got to be aligned behind the decision, and so we make a conscious effort that once we make a decision, we're moving forward with it. We do look back, as Lorinda said, and evaluate whether that was the appropriate one, and make sure that we're using KPIs to indicate whether it was successful or not. But when you make a decision, everybody just needs to move forward with that, and then work together to make sure that you're communicating it well.
Employees need to know where we're going. And there's an old Monty Python skit that it's called the 100-yard dash for people with no sense of direction. and what happens is, you know, everybody all lines up, and the starter shoots the gun, and they all go, right? And that's, you know, when you have a talented, an organization that is as talented as ours is, that's what they want to do. They want to go. Yeah. And you know, the key is to give it enough head, but also give them those lanes to say this is where we're going, and then let them go. But you know, without those lanes, they'll just go.
Yeah. That's great. Love that metaphor. Love it.
My name is David Morelli. I'm with EMBA 65. I have the pleasure of having Scott be our professor as well. 65. Okay, so I'm an SVP of strategy at a local tech company, as well as doing corporate coaching with the whole organization. We're looking to see, we're on either side of the acquisition, meaning to be acquired or to acquire. So the question that I have is multi-leveled, which is appropriate for level 3. So the first question is, what do you look for that has one organization stand out above others that you're considering acquiring for potentially the same role? And then what are the red flags that would have you turn away from various companies, as in, let's not acquire them?
I'll again lead off.
I got acquired. I can't answer that.
You obviously weren't a red flag.
Well, that actually is a red flag. I mean, the management team,
yeah.
Right? The management team, are they trying to build something, or are they just trying to have an exit? You know, are they wanting to be part of what they've built and combine that with something bigger to make it better? And so that is a red flag. In talking to John, if John hadn't been interested in coming to the combined business and building us the company that we want to build by putting TW Telecom and Level 3 together, that would have been a red flag, that it wasn't the right thing, at least from the other side's perspective. Lots of other red flags, cultures that don't fit. You know, if I talked about shining a light earlier, if the culture of the company is to hide everything, which you can see very quickly in due diligence, that's usually a pretty strong red flag that people won't have the same culture as you in the combined business. We look for excellence, and it can be excellence in a number of different ways. TW Telecom had an excellent customer experience. That's one form of excellence that we very much value, Level 3 values. We look for excellence in technology and understanding of where the markets are going, the products and services, and that sort of thing. And so there are lots of reasons that we might want to buy somebody. There are lots of things that turn into red flags as well, usually in the due diligence process.
And I mean, just logically, turning away from potential acquisition, valuation, right? It's got to fit strategically, and it's got to be at the right price. And if it's not, there's got to be a really good reason as to why you'd overpay for something.
Yeah. That's probably a real good reason that 60 to 70% of acquisitions don't create shareholder value is we pay too much, right?
That's right.
Just
but you said it in the beginning.
Right.
Pay too much is one of them,
right.
but it's also not integrated
That's
properly because you had the wrong culture, you didn't spend enough time saying where you were trying to go.
Absolutely.
All of those other things as well.
Absolutely. Is that it? Well, with that, I'd like to thank you for your time, and it was very, very good. And, thank you. Thanks.
So I want to once again thank our panel members for their generous and eloquent sharing of what is a fascinating story. I want to thank Scott for his moderation and everything else he does for the college. So this is the fourth Voice of Experience event this year. And while we talk about co-creation and community, and this is clearly a group effort, you know, there is someone on point, and that means that there is someone who is ultimately accountable. And I want to take a minute to acknowledge that person who really makes this all come together. And so, Kate Dillon, where are you? Kate. Let me again thank John and Jeff and Lorinda for the comments. We are especially proud to have Lorinda here. She is a recent addition to the college's advisory board, the senior corporate board, and is a valued and engaged member. We're delighted to have you. Thank you all for taking the time to spend part of your evening with us. Thank you all for making this part of your evening. Enjoy the reception later on. Look forward to seeing you later. Thank you. Be safe out there.